Like, the fact that you can give that a straight red card, and the fact that they upholds that decision, goes to show the standard of refereeing in this country is fucking abysmal. It's abysmal. It's shocking, and we praise the actual quality on the pitch, and we praise the active support, and we praise everything around it. But if the refs are ruining games like this, it makes for a shit spectacle. It ruins the game. It ruins the experience for the fans, and it's just so disappointing how. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Two Footed Tackle Podcast. I'm your host, Ari Stamatakos, and we're back for another week of football conversation. I hope the week has treated you all well. It hasn't for me, unfortunately. I caught a little bit of a man flu towards the back end of last week. I thought it was hay fever initially, but no, I was very sick over the previous maybe 4 or 5 days. I think I've overcome the worst of it now, which is good. But if I look slightly more dishevelled and sound slightly more croaky or nasally, then I apologise. I should be back to full fitness, or like I should be back completely fine come next week. But you might have to bear with for this episode. If there's a cut, that's probably because I start having a sneezing or coughing fit. But yeah, we should be fine. I'm overreacting. I'm fine. I hope the week has treated everyone nicely. Apart from that, everything's all good on my end. There's a lot of football to speak about. A couple of major shifts in football, in a sense, in terms of a couple of major storylines and talking points, which I'm sure we'll cover. But before we do that, I implore everyone to subscribe to the Two Footed Tackle Podcast on YouTube. Subscribe to it, like it, like all the podcasts, like all the videos, like all the clips, I should say, and notification bell as well, so you don't miss out on anything. And all the audio platforms as well. Spotify, just follow it, give it a 5-star rating. The more 5-star ratings that we get, then the more people will come and watch, because the more people are saying that it's good. So that would mean the world to me. And of course, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast as well. Follow it, subscribe to it. I don't know what the system is on those apps, but do whatever the equivalent of those two things are. And of course, Anchor as well. If you want to listen to it via that method, then by all means. But and all the socials as well. 2 Footed Tackle Podcast on Instagram and TikTok, and 2FTPod on Twitter, which I should have used a lot more this weekend, but once again, a little bit under the weather, a little bit tired. Also, the new Football Manager came out, so I was not grinding that, but I was getting head. I was getting what's the phrase? I was digging my heels into that maybe over the weekend as well, which was good. New game, so you need to get it done. But yeah, let's move on. I need to stop rambling for 5 minutes at the start of every episode. I should just crack into things. But what are we going to speak about today? Well, as you can tell by the title, I want to speak on Cristiano Ronaldo, because there was there's been a lot of conjecture around him, especially throughout, or especially in the outcome or in the outlook of their game in midweek. I want to speak on Steven Gerrard being sacked by Aston Villa. Speak on them. I want to speak about Napoli, because they won on the weekend, and I feel like I'm obliged to, for one person in particular, and you know who you are. And I also want to speak on the A-League, because a lot of things happened. Over the weekend in the A-League, and I feel like we can speak about that for quite a bit. And then, of course, we went into footed as well to finish it all up. But let's start with what it says in the title, Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, this isn't the first time we've spoken about Cristiano Ronaldo on the podcast. This isn't the first time, won't be the last time by any means. So where do we start from this? So, obviously, he has not been playing that much, I think is probably the fairest assumption, or the fairest thing to say. He hasn't been starting a lot of games, especially under Eric Ten Hag. And in this new system, he seems to be falling out of favour. Now, a player of his quality probably should be starting more games than he is, right? I feel like that's kind of undeniable. But he didn't make an appearance against Tottenham, which we'll speak about. He didn't make an appearance in the Manchester derby, which of course caused a lot of issues. Didn't start against Everton, and he didn't start against Everton. He started against Newcastle, but failed to score. He scored against Everton in the league, coming on for Anthony Martial in the first half. But before that, his last goal in the league came against Brentford last year. Came against Brentford last year. Last year? Was that? Yeah, it was last year. So yeah, his last goal in the league prior to that came against Brentford last year, and that was over a penalty. So he hasn't been in the best of form as well, especially for club in terms of his club, and he hasn't been starting, which probably means the continuity isn't there. And is he right to be angry from that perspective? Yes, he is right to be angry from that perspective because he's Cristiano Ronaldo. He's probably one of the best players to ever play the game, definitely top 5, probably top 3, probably top in some people's categories. Not mine, but you can have the debate all you want. Is he one of the best footballers alive today? Yes, he is. Would he start for pretty much every single team in the world? Probably, you'd think. I mean, there's very few that wouldn't take him. And it all came to a little bit of a head against Spurs. Now, from what the reports are saying, we all know what happened is that, we're 2-0 up, cruising to a victory, and Ronaldo, from what it looked like, spat the dummy out and just walked down the tunnel with about 5 minutes to go in the game. Now, the United had the game wrapped up. They weren't chasing a goal. They weren't chasing anything. They pretty much had the game sealed. Dominated proceedings, really, really outclassed Tottenham in that game, and Ronaldo's presence wasn't needed, put it that way, especially in the period in which we saw him go off the pitch. Now, from what reports are saying is that he refused to come on in that game. Erik ten Hag requested him to warm up and play, and then he was like, fuck this, and just walked down the tunnel, off the pitch, out of sight. Now, this kind of is a bit of a microcosm of a greater problem that surrounds Cristiano Ronaldo, and this is a problem which I've been critical of and vocal about for a long time, pretty much ever since I signed him. Now, it's undeniable that he is probably the best goal scorer in that team, probably the best footballer in that team. Let's be honest, but especially as a pure goal scorer, no doubt, right? It's you can't even dispute that by any means. And like I said, he's probably one of the best, if not one of the best, if not the best player in that squad. However, this is a problem which has been present for a couple of months, especially towards the back end of last year. Now, we all know that Ronaldo came to the United last year in the hopes, or in the, how do I say this? His addition was meant to win United the league. I think that's pretty much undisputable. And I vocalised this last year. I was like, United will not win the league under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer regardless, right? So that was a pretty misguided acquisition, in my opinion. I feel like if Manchester City weren't after Ronaldo, I don't think he would have gone to Manchester United. He came last year, made an instant impact, scored a lot of goals, scored some crucial goals, and really showed... He proved his worth. I mean, it's Ronaldo, right? He's no mug. But this problem has been coming and has been brewing for a long time, and I think it came to a head in midweek against Spurs. And it's that problem of him off the pitch. Now, we all know that one of the main reasons why Ronaldo was brought in was, yes, because of his on-the-pitch performances, no doubt, but also the standards that he drives, or the standards that he's meant to drive off the pitch. Obviously, probably one of the most professional athletes in terms of he's 37, but he looks 25, right? His body is in incredible shape. He conducts himself physically and in the right manner. He doesn't, there's no photos of him drinking or smoking or doing anything like that, right? He's an archetypal footballer in the sense of what a footballer should be. It's this ultimate professional, keeps his body right, keeps his game in the right nick, wants to do everything to win, right? Ultimate competitor. So from that perspective, you think, all right, that's good. You want more people like that in the dressing room, because the more professionals like that you have, the more chances you have to win because of the standards that they set. However, Ronaldo has a lot more nuance than that. He obviously has a massive ego, no doubt. You don't become one of, if not the best player in the world without having an ego, right? And when you aren't in control of your destiny in a sense, and you aren't in control of you aren't in control of what controls your ego in a sense, then things can spiral. And what I mean by that was last year, Ronaldo had to play. He had to play every game, right? Every game he was fit, he had to play because he was the marquee signing. United were challenging for the league. They had no real other strikers, and their game plan was centered around Ronaldo. So he had to play. Meaning that there wasn't really any chance of his ego being dented, of him not playing, of him not scoring goals, because he was going to be there regardless, because he had to be. However, now, it's a different story because, in the space of 12 months, a lot can change and a lot has changed. The game plan isn't centered around Ronaldo anymore. He has lost a little bit of what made him Ronaldo. He's not content. Well, United aren't challenging for the league. So obviously his reason for coming to United isn't being fulfilled because they're not going to win the league. And United are in a place of a rebuild, and you can't rebuild with Cristiano Ronaldo in your team, because let's be honest, the next time United are going to win the league, Ronaldo's not going to be in that squad. So you're better off giving players like Martial, players like Rashford, Elanga, these players the game time and the weight and the moment to express themselves more than Ronaldo, who's here for just a paper over the cracks type thing. And I think he's realised that. He's realised that, shit, I'm not the main guy anymore. I'm not here. We're not going to win the league, so I'm not going to win the league. I'm 38 or 37. I'm not happy, right? That's obviously what he's thinking. And the title of this podcast is why Manchester United should sell Cristiano Ronaldo. He's obviously out of contract come the end of the year, so he'll leave regardless. There's in my opinion, little to no chance that Cristiano Ronaldo will play for Manchester United next season. And in my opinion, there's probably a less than 50% chance that he plays for Manchester United post-January. And I think United needs to cut their losses, like they did with Paul Pogba, and say, you are currently creating a toxic atmosphere that isn't helpful to our club. United need to back Erik ten Hag more than they back Cristiano Ronaldo. And by virtue of that, they need to part ways with one of them. And it needs to be Ronaldo. Because United dominated against Spurs. They destroyed them. They won in a convincing manner at home against a top 4 team who was, people were saying, could be a smoky for the title, right? Absolutely destroyed them. It was a brilliant display. Absolutely phenomenal. And yet the headlines coming out of this game is not how good Ten Hag's United were, not how good these players are, not how well Ten Hag has this team playing. It's, look at Ronaldo, look at what he's done. Why is this happening? And that's not what builds a good culture. That's not what builds a good way of winning, in a sense, because momentum is a big thing in football, and the way you get momentum is by having positive outlooks around your club from externally and internally. Right now, it seems like it's doomsday from an external perspective. That shouldn't be the case, because United have just come off a big win. I know they came over with a point at Stamford Bridge, which Ronaldo didn't feature at all in. And we obviously now come to know he's been pretty much dropped from the first team, been told to train on his own, didn't even make the squad, didn't make the trip to London for the game against Chelsea. They need to cut their losses. Right now, Cristiano Ronaldo is a bigger detriment than he is a positive for Manchester United. They need to cut their losses, get rid of him, get rid of the stain that he's bringing on that football club, and then really, really rebuild. That's what they need to do. Because right now, he's cultivating a negative culture. Whether or not he's doing it on purpose, and I don't think he is. But right now, and we saw it after the game against Tottenham, why weren't we talking about how well United played? We were talking about Cristiano Ronaldo. He didn't need to do that. He didn't need to storm down the tunnel. He knew exactly what he was doing when he did that. He knew exactly what he's doing. He's a smart person, right? If he just stayed on the bench, we would. If he just stayed on the bench, we would have a much better outlook on Manchester United. And to be honest, Manchester United probably performed better than what they did on over the weekend against Chelsea. United need to cut their losses, get rid of Ronaldo, because right now he's a heavy detriment to what Erik ten Hag is trying to build. He is not part of his plans, it's obvious to see, and he won't be a part of their squad when they win the title next. He won't be. United's next title-winning squad does not have Cristiano Ronaldo in it. So why are we protecting him and why are we making excuses for him when he's obviously creating a toxic atmosphere at United? Why shouldn't, as the football public, just discard him and say to United, get rid of him? He's probably one of the best players in the world, but right now he's a far bigger negative influence than he's a positive influence on that squad. It isn't a good look. It isn't good publicity. It isn't good. Like I said, the culture isn't good from an external perspective. Because why aren't we talking about how good United have been in the past, in like how good they've been at periods over the past month? They beat Spurs, right? They got belted by City, but they beat Arsenal, they beat Liverpool, right? They came over the point against Chelsea in a real display of character in the way that they did it. But no one seems to care because it's, oh my God, look at what Ronaldo's doing, look at what he's done. You need selfless players in your squad, and selflessness comes from putting the team first at every single opportunity. That's not what Ronaldo's doing. Because let's not pretend that Ronaldo is this naive 19-year-old that doesn't really know what he's doing. He's been around the blocks, man. Like, he's 37 years old. Probably one of the most publicized and paparazzied footballers ever, right? He knows exactly what he's doing, and it's not a good look. He knew exactly what he was doing by storming off. He knew exactly what that would show to everyone. Selfless footballers do everything they can to give the squad the best chance of succeeding. And by doing that, you have to put your faith in the manager, because he's employed to make the decisions. And if his decision is, Cristiano, I want you to come on for the final 5 minutes of stoppage time in a game which we've already won, you have to do it. You can't say no, because you have to do it, right? Because he's the coach, he's the boss. And we've seen now what he didn't do it, and we've seen what the repercussions are. I think Erik ten Hag has come out of this looking very good. I think Erik ten Hag has come out of this looking like a proper manager, not a pushover, and a manager that has balls, right? He's a manager that has shown that I'm not going to be stepped on, I'm not going to be stepped over, I'm not going to be spat on. I'm the boss. I'm making the decisions. I don't care if you're Cristiano Ronaldo, if you're Anthony Martial, if you're David De Gea, Victor Lindelof, Malacia, right? I don't care who you are. I make the decisions. This is how things go. This was one of the things I was slightly concerned about when it comes to Ten Hag when he came. I was like, how is he going to manage these egos? But especially the ego of Ronaldo. Obviously, we didn't know the state of Paul Pogba. Obviously, he's now moved on. But I think he's handled this. I think he's handled this beautifully. So massive props to him. And United should be proud of the way that he's handled it. He should be proud of the way that their team are performing on the pitch, because that squad is far from complete. That squad is far from finished in terms of its rebuild, and they're performing very well. They're performing very well, barring their two mishaps at the start of the season. They beat Arsenal, the only team in the league to do so. They beat Liverpool, which I know Liverpool haven't been great, but that's still a very good result. Probably, I think a draw was a fair result against Chelsea, but that game could have gone either way. But the way that they got that point was good for them. They showed character. They showed a bit of bottle to not give up and score with practically the last kick of the game. Barring that blip against City and, of course, those two losses at the start of the season, it's been a pretty good season for United. It's been a pretty good year. And this is exactly what... I spoke about this 2 episodes ago, I think. This is exactly what we should expect from them. And this is exactly why we should be talking about them in a positive way and not in a negative way when it comes to Cristiano Ronaldo. It's not like Ronaldo is... It's not like Ronaldo scoring 30 goals a season for them. It's not like he's their match winner. He isn't playing. So, cut your losses. Ship him off at the soonest possible opportunity. I don't know where that's going to be or when. Obviously, he's out of contract, so he won't sign a new deal. So, it's a matter of if they do it in January or if they just wait. If they want to let him go in January, who takes him, right? That's the question. Does he go back to Italy? Probably not. I don't think he's wanted, especially back at Juventus. I don't think he's wanted. Would he go back to Spain? Doubt it. The Bundesliga, obviously Bayern Munich are without a striker, but they're performing fantastically well without one. The French League, that's probably the only way I can see it happening, is PSG. If they get rid of Mbappe and bring in Ronaldo in January, that would make for... That would be football heritage. Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar as a front three. There's no pressing involved in that, by the way. As a centre back, you can literally just stand on the ball for 20 minutes, and nothing will come at you. Poor Verratti, if that will ever happen. Or even if they just bring him in without letting go of Mbappe, and then they play Mbappe off the left, Messi on the right, Neymar behind, and Ronaldo up front. I don't like. It's tricky. I mean, we can't go to the MLS. He's too good for the MLS anyway. Even if you could go, he's not. It's not like it's not. He's got some top 5 European football left in him, I think. I don't think it's what he was offering 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons ago. But coming off the bench, playing a bit part role, playing a role in which he doesn't really have to strain himself physically, playing as that poacher, I think he could do more than well for a lot of teams. But you need to be very particular about your system when you play him, and that's why Ten Hag doesn't want to play him because when you play this not high pressing way of playing football, because it's not high octane. It's not like Klopp, Jesus Christ. It's not like Klopp in his first couple of years at Liverpool. It's not like that. It's not that intense. It's not that high tempo. But it's still pretty high tempo, especially in possession, especially when they get into the final third. They kind of build up their tempo as they go, in a way. They play a little bit like, I know Spain did this, especially at the Euros. I'm not sure if they're going to play like this at the World Cup, but like as they progress the ball further up the pitch, they increase their tempo, which creates for a lot of interesting footballs and interesting patterns of play, which is what we've come to see from Ten Hag's United. And some days it works and some days it doesn't. But I think they need to cut their losses with Ronaldo, save. I mean, if you sell him in January, I don't think you will. But basically, what I'm saying is get rid of Ronaldo at the nearest possible opportunity and reinvest that in some selfless, hungry, youthful players that will fit the system. Like I said, I think they need another midfielder because I don't think Eriksen's a number 8. Like in terms of I don't think Eriksen can play in a double pivot long term. They probably need another fullback and they probably need a striker to replace Ronaldo. Who that striker is, who knows? But yeah, that's all. When you speak on Cristiano Ronaldo leaving United, I feel like that's the main story that's come out of football this week. Apart from the story which I'm just going to touch on right now, and that is, as I drink some water because still a little bit under the weather, but yeah. So Ronaldo was the biggest story that has come out of the footballing week, but probably the second biggest is Steven Gerrard has been relieved of his duties at Aston Villa. Now, Long time coming, in my opinion. He was sacked after their 3-0 loss to Fulham. He was sacked in the tunnel at Craven Cottage, I think. He was definitely sacked in Craven Cottage. Kind of like Rafa Benitez or Carlo Ancelotti. I can't remember which Chelsea manager got sacked in the tunnel at a ground. I think that's it. Or was it Avram Grant? I think. I don't know. I don't know who it was, but I don't know which Chelsea manager it was. But obviously, who was that Tottenham manager that got sacked? Who was that Tottenham manager that got sacked at half time of a game? Fuck, what's his name? Oh, it's escaped me and I'm very annoyed. But yes, anyway, Steven Gerrard, relieved of his duties. Steven Gerrard relieved of his duties as Aston Villa head coach after their 3-0 loss to Fulham, sacked at Craven Cottage, had to take the bus back with the players knowing that he was sacked. Very shit situation. But in my opinion, it's been a long time coming. Now, to put it bluntly, Steven Gerrard is not ready. He was never ready. We've seen how different. We've seen now how different Scottish football and the Scottish football division is to England, and he just simply wasn't ready. He wasn't ready to adapt. He wasn't ready to change, and he wasn't ready to admit that he was wrong. He played a stubborn way of playing football, extremely narrow, extremely subdued, extremely stubborn is the way that he played, and in the end, it cost him. I mean, we know that when he came in last year, in the middle of the season last year, we all saw a little bit of that new manager bounce, but it came clear pretty much in the new year that he wasn't fit. Like, he wasn't fit to coach Aston Villa. That came pretty apparent to me quite early on, and it was either a matter of how is he going to fix this with a full preseason and a full transfer window, or is he just going to maintain this stubbornness, right? Because it was kind of the same thing that we have come to expect. Now Dean Smith got sacked. Dean Smith was relieved of his duties after a 1-0 loss? Yes, he was relieved after his duties after a 1-0 loss to Southampton last season. They started the season with 1 win and 5 losses, and he was obviously sacked. Now, from that period, the next 5 games was a 2-0 win over Brighton, a 2-1 win over Crystal Palace, a 2-1 loss to Manchester City, and a 2-1 win against Leicester, a 1-0 loss to Liverpool, and then a 2-0 win over Norwich. That's the next 6. Now, from that point on, they won 1 game from 9, and then they went on a 3-game win streak before going on a 4-game loss streak, right? And then they finished their season with the last 7 games with only 2 wins. So it wasn't like last season Gerrard cemented himself as a very good manager that can take this team forward. He was given the benefit of the doubt because of A, his name, B, his winnings at Rangers, and C, he wasn't given proper, like, he was just shunted right into the job. No full preseason. No full preseason, no transfer window, no proper transfer window, all of those things, right? So we all gave him the benefit of the doubt to right the wrongs of this season, right? And then he came out first game of the season and lost 2-0 to the newly promoted Bournemouth. Now, it was very disappointing because I had Aston Villa finishing quite high in the table this season. And I thought that because I thought Steven Gerrard would adapt. We saw that this narrow formation, he's tried to convert Leon Bailey into a striker. With the narrow formation, you try to get the most out of your fullbacks, and Ashley Young isn't really doing a whole lot for them. And especially on that left hand side, and nor on the right hand side, there's been a lot. There's been a lot for them on that right hand side as well. It's you're in a position here where the way you're trying to play doesn't suit the players at their disposal. They have Philip Coutinho and Emi Buendia, who are fantastic number 10s. Buendia can also play on the wing as well. You have Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins up front. Ollie Watkins can also play out wide if needed. And then you have Leon Bailey as your true winger, right? I don't see a way in which a narrow formation with those players at his disposal works. Granted, they've got a midfield which is pretty good. I rate what they've got in midfield. Obviously, Jacob Ramsey he's come on leaps and bounds, especially since where he was at the start of last season. Douglas Luiz and John McGinn have been staples for that team for quite a long time. And you sit here and you think, why? How can this have gone so poorly with the signings that they've made as well? Especially, obviously, Kamara came in to play as that holding midfield pivot. Diego Carlos as well, who's unfortunately gone down with an injury. But this squad is far better than what Steven Gerrard was able to get out of them. Far better. And when you look at it from that perspective, you say his job is untenable, and it's been untenable for a long time. I said this when they appointed him, and I said this when they sacked Dean Smith. I said, this is playing with fire a little bit, because he's not proven. Steven Gerrard is not proven. One good season for Rangers doesn't prove anything, right? Or like 18 months at Rangers doesn't really prove anything. He was shunted into a role mid-season, and that's probably a poison chalice for a lot of managers. It's a poison chalice for a lot of inexperienced managers, especially. Because when you are an inexperienced manager, you want to try to get familiar with your surroundings and you want to get comfortable within your role. Coming into a job and then having to play your first game on that weekend, maybe 4 or 5 days after you get the job, and then having game every single weekend from there, doesn't suit an inexperienced manager. So I thought that was a little bit of a red flag to start off with. And the way that they played football has never adapted. It never changed. His first game in charge, granted, it was a 2-0 win over Brighton. They played with Buendia Watkins. They played with Buendia Watkins in Ings up front. And the way that they played, kind of, while it was a little bit different, obviously, because it's been 12 months, right? So you'd expect the game plan to adapt a little bit. It's still very similar in a sense. It was still a very similar system, and that is concerning because it was so narrow to start off with. It was so narrow to start off with. He played almost like a little bit of like a Christmas tree in a sense, where it started with that 4 at the back, then it went to 3 in midfield, then it went 2 in behind, and then went 1 up front. That was present in his second game. In his second game, that system was present. And for it to still be present 12 months later with little to no changes, and for those little to no changes having not come at the expense of poor performances, shows that he's not ready. He was never ready. And it was a long time coming, and it was something where you can't be shocked at it in a sense. Obviously, it doesn't help that the first game where he is the manager, they win 4-0 over Brentford. They go 3-0 up inside 15 minutes. And they played a way of football which was expansive. It was wide, it was direct, it was fluid, very different to the way that Steven Gerrard set this team up. He set them up with little to no identity, and he set them up with little to no successful way of playing football, which isn't sustainable. So that was something which I observed, and something which has ultimately cost him his job. Where does he go from here? Who knows? Who comes in for Aston Villa? Who knows? Obviously, Thomas Tuchel's in the market. I don't think he'll go there. I think Poch is in the market. I don't think he'll go there. I mean, if a narrow system didn't work under Gerrard, as if it's going to work under Poch. In terms of we already know a narrow system doesn't work, so how are you going to bring in a manager which plays a narrow system? Who else is there? Steve Bruce. I want to try and bring up the odds quickly, if I can find them, but I just don't. they won't go down. Villa won't go down. There's no chance they'll go down, right? So, like, you can't think in a doomsday, you can't think in a doomsday scenario where they could go down, or Steven Gerrard was going to bring them down, was going to take them down. They were never going to get relegated. Even if Gerrard stayed in a job, they were never going to get relegated. So there's the odds. You have Ruben Amorim, who I don't actually know who that is, unfortunately. But you have Unai Emery at 5-1, which that'd be pretty good. You have Sean Dyche, Poch, Thomas Frank, that won't happen. Michael Beale, we'll speak on him briefly. Roberto Martinez, Nuno, Rafa, Tuchel, Bielsa, Scott Parker, Chris Wilder, John Terry, Jose, Dean Smith, Wayne Rooney, Hassan Hoodle, Ole. I wouldn't mind actually Ole. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Ole at Villa. That's interesting. Because that's quite interesting. I think I might have to might have to think about that quite a bit. I feel like he could do pretty well at Villa. Ole. He's not a good manager, but he'll set them up he will set them up in a 4-2-3-1, sit deep, low block, hard to break down, and then hit on the counter with when they are facilitating Watkins and Bailey and Ramsey. Could work. I want to speak about Michael Beale because his QPR are top of the championship, and it's quite clear to see that he was the main kind of main man behind the mission. He was everything that Aston Villa fans thought Steven Gerrard was. Like I said, his QPR side on top of the league in the championship. He was the main man behind that system last year. And while it didn't perform well, it performed a lot better than what it has performed this season. He was a massive loss for them, a pretty underestimated loss by a lot of the football public, especially myself. As my camera doesn't focus, here we go. He was a big loss to Villa, and a lot of the football media, especially myself, underestimated that. But we've come to see now just how much of a impact that his loss has had. Unai Emery as well is the second odds-on favourite. That'd be pretty good. He'd set them up in a very robust way. They will be very hard to play against, and they've got that individual brilliance up front to get them points and to get them wins where they probably don't deserve them. Unai Emery would be a pretty good shout. Sean Dyche would be funny. Steve Bruce would be funny. I don't think either won't go to there. Either won't go there. But yeah, it would be interesting to see. But overall, Steven Gerrard was never ready to coach Aston Villa, and we've come to find out that football's a harsh game and football is ruthless. And when you're not ready, you get eaten alive. So Gerrard gone. Who comes in? If I had to pick someone, for Villa, I mean, the thought of Ole actually is not that bad, because he did well with United when they played a counter-attacking system, and that's how he was set up to Villa. There's no emphasis on Villa to dominate games. He's got a ceiling. He won't take Villa to back into European competitions, but he'll get them to a pretty good place. Emery's probably he's obviously the second odds on favourite, so you see him. Nuno maybe. Nuno. If I had to pick, probably Emery's the one, but I wouldn't. Nuno there might do something. Might do something pretty good there. I don't know. If gun to my head, if I had to pick, I'd go Emery. I mean, just because the fact that he's second odds on favourite, there's no smoke without fire, right? So if he wasn't there, I probably wouldn't say him. But because he's there, I'd probably go with Emery. But yeah, that's enough of Villa. Let's move on, and I want to speak briefly about Napoli, because I've got a close friend of mine who supports Napoli, and requested kindly that I speak about them for once, and I said I will speak about them only if they beat Roma, and it was a Victor Osimhen thunderbolt. Victor Osimhen thunderbolt in the 80th minute that won them the game, and which sees them top of Serie A. 11 games played, undefeated, 3 points clear. Could they do it? I think I predicted them to win the league. I don't know if I did, but they're ticking along quite nicely. Napoli, they are very underrated by a lot of people. They haven't lost in any competitions this season. In the Champions League, they are top of their group, 4 wins from 4. In a group that consists of Liverpool, Ajax, and Rangers as well. So, they're probably odds-on favourite at this stage to win the league. Obviously, Juventus and Inter aren't having good seasons. Milan is probably their next biggest rival in a sense. Lazio obviously are third. They have a pretty good team as well as Atalanta. But I feel like when it comes down to the crunch, we saw Milan last year, what they were able to do. So I feel like they'll take Napoli down to the wire. But they haven't won a league in a very long time, and they've come so close so many times. I think they're going to be able to do it. I think they're going to be able to get there. Osimhen up front is providing some problems for a lot of players, and I think the main, maybe not the main player, but I feel like Zielinski is a player who's very, very underrated, especially when it comes to the talks, especially in Europe, because he's a player who isn't dominating, he isn't a dominant midfielder, but he's just so integral to the way Napoli play, the way Poland play as well. And I mean, if he does well in the World Cup for Poland, then he could really establish himself in Europe. And I feel like he's someone that that will be in demand come the back end of this season. I don't know what his contract situation is like, but I feel like I should be obliged to speak about Napoli. So Daniel, if you're listening, then there you go. I can speak about them. I've spoken about them, but I said last year I wanted Milan to win. I wanted AC Milan to win the league, right? This year I want Napoli to win the league, and they've only conceded 9 goals all season. They're beating teams well, they're beating teams well. They beat Ajax 6-1. They beat Liverpool 4-1. And I mean, when did they play? AC next? On the 3rd of April they play AC. So that comes with about 10 games or so left into the season. So that could potentially prove to be a crunch game later on. But with the likes of Inter, with the likes of Juventus falling away, Juventus 10 points away from Napoli, Inter 8 points away from Napoli. It's probably going to be a 2-horse race. Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong. You watch a lot more Serie A than me. It'll be a 2-horse race, I think. And why not? Napoli can win it. Why not? I mean, they gambled on Osimhen all those years ago, and he's finally proving to show his class, or he's finally proving his class that Napoli played. I think it was 80 million. I think that Napoli played for him, something like that. And he's really showing just how good he is. He's had a lot of raps on him for a long time. He hasn't really been able to put it together, but he is now, which is good for Napoli. But that I just want to speak about them for a little bit, because it was at the request of a good friend of mine. So yeah, there you go. But let's move on and let's speak about the A-League. Let's finish up with some local football, and it was a pretty big weekend. It started on Friday night. With the Foxtel Derby, as it's been coined, Western United versus Macarthur, and Western United's poor form continues. They haven't won in the league so far this season, and they are playing so differently without Alexander Prejovic. It is crazy. He wasn't in the squad again on Friday night. They went with Wenzel Halls up front, and there's just something tangibly missing, and I think it's him. He was such an integral part to them last season, and the fact that they managed to keep him was massive, but the fact that he isn't playing is also what's the point? Apparently it's a toe injury. I don't really know, but Macarthur as well. we were paying something like $3 to win that game before the start of the game, and they got away with a point. That was their second draw of the season. They're hard to beat. They've always been hard to beat. So I feel like they could do something pretty good this season, MacArthur. If they get everything ticking, if Arzani can get into a little bit of form, I feel like Dwight York can get them doing something pretty good this season. But if we move on to Saturday, and I want to speak about one derby in particular, or the derby. On the weekend, it was Melbourne Victory versus Melbourne City. Now, I want to touch on the referees. I want to touch on the referees in a separate point. But let's speak about the actual derby. It was obviously 2-0 win to Melbourne City, which broke my heart. It was a frustrating game from a Victory perspective. I thought Victory were probably overall the better side with 10 men. Well, prior to the 10 men, I thought Victory started the game a lot better. Josh Brillante had a fantastic chance just 10 minutes into the game and probably should have scored. And then from there, it was a sloppy penalty given away by Nani, which I thought was on the line, but I mean, a touch and go there probably is a penalty. The contact was undisputed. Like, if that was on the penalty spot, then that's a penalty, no questions asked. I just had a few debates whether it was on the line or not, but it was given. Jamie McLaren slotted away, and then within a matter of moments, I think it was Valiant Berisha's ball to the back post. It might have been comes off the post and hits Cadete in the leg, which then falls into the back of the net. 2-0 within 2 minutes. It was I think it was Valiant Berisha. Who knows? But yeah, it was Cadete who saw the ball into his own net within 2 minutes, 2-0 down, and then within 10 minutes after that, they were down to 10 men. From then on, it was pretty much game over. Victory can hold their heads up high, in my opinion. They played fantastically well with 10 men, and barring a 20-minute patch where they copped 2 goals and copped the red card, probably even 15-minute patch where those three happened. It's a way of kind of, you have to dismiss the game. You have to like kind of put it away and say like that just didn't fall for us, and then move on because they need to do that. They need to rebound quickly. From a City perspective, it was good to see Marco Tilio get a start. He actually played out all 90 minutes and played well as well. There's been a lot of not backlash, but a lot of criticism on Kisnorbo not playing Tilio for substantial minutes. But he played well. You had Matt Leckie slotting into that number 8 role, box-to-box midfielder role. He's kind of transformed himself this season. Whether or not he plays that role for the Socceroos, I don't know. I think with the midfield stocks that the Socceroos have, with the likes of Irvine and Genro and Dougal, Devlin, Moy, McGree, Metcalf, I don't think he'll fit in that respect. I think if he does play for the Socceroos, he'll play out wide. But City defensively were pretty good. They just did what they had to do. And they are top of the league, 3 wins from 3, 1 goal conceded, 6 goals scored. They've won both their Melbourne derbies this season, and they could do the business. They could go back to back in terms of the Premier's plate, and they probably want to right the wrongs of last season and win the championship. But I had my doubts heading into the season for them, just because I just didn't know what to expect. But it seems that they've got their visa signings right. Valiant Berisha, we all know the quality that he possesses. That he possesses, and then Thomas Lamb as well has slotted into that right-sided centre-half role very well. So, it will be interesting to see how their season develops. If they can maintain this run of form, and we'll see how Victory respond. I want to speak on. Let's speak on the other episode of the All Access documentary. There was, of course, Charlie Austin, and this kind of blew up on Twitter. Go seek it out, or at least seek out the clip on Twitter before I speak about it. I want to review every episode every week. This was a fascinating episode of the All Access documentary. We followed Charlie Austin around after during the build up to their 2-0 loss at home against Melbourne City. It was so enthralling viewing, especially when especially when he got angry. It was quite hilarious to see, but it was quite what are we doing here? Yeah, it was very funny to see, especially when who am I looking at? Connor Chapman? That's it. Connor Chapman. I didn't want to say I didn't want to butcher his name or say the wrong name, but yeah. Connor Chapman obviously gave away the corner for the first goal in that game and then gave away the penalty. Charlie Austin gave him a serve at halftime, which is good to see, in my opinion. A lot of people on Twitter were complaining this isn't how you want your marquee signing to react or to behave. This is the exact opposite, in my opinion. This is exactly how I would want a player of his caliber to behave. I want him to care. I'd want him to want to do anything to win, and he obviously is massively committed, and we saw that. He obviously Chapman wasn't afraid to give him a serve back of his own, which was good to see. He's not a bitch. He doesn't lie down. But yeah, it was interesting to see. I mean, looking at it from other perspectives, Warren Moon, how did he come across in this episode? I thought he came across pretty well. I think, yeah, I don't know, a little bit, I don't want to say flaky, but my preconceived thoughts on Warren Moon before I watched that episode kind of was validated throughout. He's a little bit, I don't want to be disrespectful, but he's a little bit bland, a little bit sameish, a little bit like going through the motions in a sense. But yeah, apart from that, who else did we see a lot through? It was through the perspective of Charlie Austin. We saw his pre-game routine, which was good. That scene of when he was getting an injection in his heel sounded so weird if you watch that with your eyes closed. But no, that was quite entertaining, and Austin seems to be a very entertaining character. I mean, we saw in his post-game press conference, his post-game interview, this week against Western Sydney, he was very honest. He was like, "Yeah, I scored. It was great, but I stuffed up in the first half. We should have been 1-0 up. Should have passed to, can't remember who it was, but he said he fucked up." Which is, the honesty's there, and I'll tell you what's something so simple but is so valuable. The fact that he's native English speaker is so good. Like, because he can do these interviews, his character comes across a lot better than it does if we look at Nani, who can speak, whose English is completely fine. Obviously, he played in England for however long, right? His English is more than fine, right? It's just that because obviously it's his second language, his cadences are a little bit off, and he can't really express his personality. Like, if you were to speak in Portuguese, he's obviously got a different personality than when he speaks in English, because he has to think a lot more when he speaks in English. But because Austin, obviously native English speaker, he can just his personality can be expressed a lot more. He's a lot more honest. He just doesn't give a fuck, and it was just really good to see. It was just really good to see, because what you want from your marquee signings, and what you want from these players is to be good on the pitch. That's fine. Yeah, obviously you want them to perform well on the pitch, but you also want them to add other things to the league, and I feel like Austin has added a lot so far already. He's vocal on Twitter as well, which is good, just to build connection and build rapport with the fans. And obviously being a part of that All Access documentary was fantastic as well. But that episode was fantastic viewing. Obviously the next episode is on Patrick Norbo, which will come out this Thursday. And it's going to be on the Melbourne Derby, which I'm going to have to watch through gritted teeth. But that's going to be a good episode, no doubt. It'll be fascinating to see how Kisnorbo is behind the scenes, because he seems to be a real solid character. So I want to see how he comes across. But that's what my opinion is on my 2 cents on that All Access doco. And let's move on. Not move on, but let's touch on the final thing I want to speak about when it comes to the A-League, and that is the refereeing decisions. Now, it's so frustrating, because let's start on Saturday night. Josh Brillante was given a second yellow card. In my honest opinion, that was one of the stiffest second yellow cards I've seen. It was, I think, I I may have tweeted about it. If I didn't delete it, then I'll just quote it word for word. But no, I did delete it. So, in my opinion, Josh Balante was given a yellow card, right? That foul, he wasn't stopping a counter-attack. He wasn't last man. He wasn't studs up. It wasn't high. It wasn't late. It wasn't disrupting the flow of the game. It was his first tackle after getting the first yellow card. In my opinion, that was an extremely, extremely stiff second yellow. It's the first half of a Melbourne derby. Yeah, the game's done once that red card's given. I just didn't think that red card was warranted. I thought he should have been given the benefit of the doubt. And then, of course, the Ibusuki red card the following day was absolutely fucking absurd. Like, the fact that you can give that a straight red card and the fact that VAR upholds that decision goes to show the standard of refereeing in this country is fucking abysmal. It's abysmal. It's shocking. And we praise the actual quality on the pitch, and we praise the active support, and we praise everything around it. But if the refs are ruining games like this, it makes for a shit spectacle. It ruins the game. It ruins the experience for the fans. And it's just so disappointing how you can give that a straight red, especially after VAR. Like, what is it there for? Just, if you're not going to use it properly, get rid of it. Get rid of it, because what's the point? Like, what is the point? Like, it's seriously fucked. Like, it's so fucked. Lucky Adelaide United had a bit of bottle to still get a result from that game, because they did not deserve to go down to 10, especially after being 1-0 up. It was a pretty poor decision. But yeah, they're just two things that I want to speak about. The standard of refereeing in this country is slowly declining, and it's slowly boiling my piss. Right? This issue has plagued the league for so long. So how are we not addressing it? How is it the same shit over and over again? That's what's frustrating. Because it's not going to be addressed. It hasn't been addressed for so long. And I just feel like it's never going to be addressed because it hasn't been addressed already. It's been happening for so long, and it's been happening so obviously. Like, it's obviously an issue. How are we not addressing it? And it seems to be the same culprits over and over again, which is even more disappointing. But yeah, let's finish up. Let's finish up with who went into footed. Yeah, for those who haven't seen this episode before, basically, so we go through the world of football and just go through some players, fans, clubs, organisations, staff, media, whoever does something daft, stupid, dumb, idiotic, not good, hilarious at times, but also not good. And this week, we're going to stay close to home. Melbourne derby. This is the downside of what I spoke about last week. Now, last week, spoke about the active support a little bit, and I spoke about how good it is that it's back. However, the negative of that is when you attract a lot of people, more dickheads are going to rock up. Now, in the terrace, obviously photos emerged after the game on Saturday night, where a lot of chairs and a lot of seats were broken in the northern end in the OSM stand. Now, I'm not blaming them. Because while I have been critical of some of their behaviours in the past, and while I have been critical of while I have been critical of some of their behaviour in the past, and while I have been critical of the way that they conducted themselves in the past, this is the first time that a big scene has been caused by or because of the amount of seats being broken. Now, that is not their fault. I believe, from what I know, that is not their fault, because if it was their fault, we would have heard it a long time before just this game. Because they travel the country, they're really passionate, they bring the same energy every single week. So the fact that it hasn't happened before and only happens now leads me to believe that it isn't their fault. So I'm not blaming them. And can I bear in mind that seats get broken, especially when you stand on them, especially when you jump around on them, seats get broken. However, from what I've seen, from what I've read, from the people I've spoken to, there was a lot of people in that terrace that haven't been to the game before, people that rock up twice a year, people that think that they are part of the terrace and think that they care about the sport, when really all they want is just an excuse to be a dickhead and to swear and to shout and to break shit. A lot of people saying that chairs were just broken for no reason. People were just like ripping them off and throwing them and shit. It's frustrating, man. It's really frustrating, because we do so much, and the OSM and the RBB and the Cove have done so much to bring that active support back through partisan, loyal, week in, week out support, and for people to just rock up twice a year, do stupid stuff, and then for it to like take 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps backwards is extremely disappointing. So if you're one of those people who just rock up twice a year, sit in the terrace, break seats, be a dickhead, and then don't watch football again for the rest of the year, go fuck yourself, because you're not welcome. And if you want to sit in the terrace, if you want to go to games, then go to every game. Support passionately, partisanly, but respectfully. Be loyal, be respectful, but I don't mind, push the edge. That's fine. Flares and stuff. The quantity is an issue not in my opinion. Like if I see 10 million flares being ripped, that's obviously not good. But push the lines, that's fine. But when you're obviously going over the line and obviously just vandalizing shit and obviously just breaking stuff, that's too far. And that's setting a bad name for all the active supporters in the country, setting a bad name for all the people that support and that want this league to be back to where it needs to be. It's just very disappointing. And I wasn't surprised. I knew this was going to come out because that's just what happens with football in this country. It was a good crowd. I think it was something like 23,000, which is the highest this season. It's been the highest for a couple of seasons, I think, which was pretty good. The attendance trends are slowly increasing, which fucking fingers crossed they maintain that, because we need them to. But yeah, it was everything apart from that was good in terms of the derby. The noise was great. City packed out their little corner, which was quite cute. Victory packed out the full North Terrace, which was great. Granted, it was filled with some dickheads, but you can't win them all. But it is what it is. Let's finish up. Let's move on to the preview of the week. And we're back with Champions League action. I do believe we do. We are back with Champions League action. Some big games. Dortmund versus City. Dortmund versus City. I don't know, that's probably the biggest game on the first match day. And then on the second match day, Barca versus Bayern Munich, which is going to be good. Barca need to win. And they need to hope inside drop points. But then if we look at the Premier League stuff, any big games, not really. Pretty dull weekend. But that's it. That's enough. Thank you all very much for watching. I just ticked over an hour and a couple of minutes, so thank you all very much for watching. Thank you for sticking around. If you have, make sure to subscribe to the 2 Foot Attacker podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the 2 Foot Attacker podcast, like the video, notification bell, subscribe, follow on all the socials, 2 Foot Attacker podcast on TikTok and Instagram, TFTPod on Twitter. Audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast. Share it around. All the love and support would mean the absolute world. And also, leave your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube or tweet me some guests you'd like to see. I want to start getting a few more guests involved. So comment some people you'd like to hear from, whether it's an interview or just to have a chat. I would love to see both. But thank you all very much for watching. Thank you for sticking around. See you guys next week. Speak soon. Goodbye.